Hi, everybody. Welcome to Win Win Women and to this wonderful show that I am so happy and proud to be working once again with Carrie Donegan, my dear friend, my mentor, and an expert, I would say, uh, globally uh, in the essential oil world. So you're going to learn a lot tonight. And those of you who are not on now and find the programs through looking up with a win-win will be able to really check this out and see this again and be able to go back on the information. So welcome, Carrie.
Lana, it's so great to be here. And I honestly, I can't have to throw that back to you. You have been a mentor of mine. So the name and the title is mutual, and it's really a joy to be here tonight.
Yes, it's so fun, and I was trying to figure out how long we've known each other, and I believe it's since 2011.
Yeah. So it's
Yes,
coming on, what's that, 13 years. Amazing.
about 13 years. It seems longer,
It
but
does. There are
yeah,
certain people where you always feel like you've known them their whole life, and you're certainly one of those people.
that's true, and I'm so happy to have this opportunity and to give Tracy a little break, and to I just really wanted to do this. So here we are, and you've interviewed me a few times as well.
Yeah.
So this is very reciprocal. So you have such a wonderful beginning to your journey of essential oils and using them. Uh, uh, what prompted you to start using these oils?
Well, I think I'm pretty typical of a lot of people. I didn't start off, studying essential oils or using essential oils. In fact, I started using them about 20 years ago, which is sort of an incredible thing to think about. And back then, there wasn't a lot of information. And I feel like there was a significant stigma around essential oils. And my dad was a doctor, my mom's a nurse. And I think that in my household, conventional medicine was the only choice. Everything else was, just, I don't know, either folklore or it was not validated by real science. But let's just say that it wasn't something that was taught or accepted in my life, certainly. But I will share with your audience that growing up, I was a very sick child. And so even though I was surrounded by the medical community, the prevailing thought was, well, we have treatments, but we don't have cures. And we have side effects, but we don't have side benefits. And that was my way of thinking. And so let's fast forward now to about 2005. I was married, I had two small children, and I developed yet another health crisis. And at that time, my health crisis was the loss of hearing in one ear. And it just got progressively worse. There was a lot of pain involved. I couldn't sleep. And, being a new mom, you have to get your sleep, you have to have energy. It was just a downward spiral. And so I had great medical insurance at the time. I was working at Columbia University in a whole different field. And I went to the doctor locally, and he said, it looks to me like you've had a lot of issues with your sinus cavity, with your ears. Were you sick as a kid? And I was like, oh, yeah, I was sick all the time. And he goes, were you on a lot of antibiotics? Yes, I was on a lot of antibiotics. And in fact, I was kind of a serial antibiotic user, which I will talk a little bit about that later and how that fits in with essential oils. But needless to say, it did break down my health considerably. And then he said, well, you've been left with a lot of scar tissue and a lot of deformity of the ear. I don't really think there's anything we can do medically. I don't want to do surgery because surgery means more keloids, more scar tissue, and you're just going to end up with other problems. So let's treat this with medicine. That was his answer. And so he put me on 5 different medications. Each of them had side effects. And so the equation wasn't really net positive. At the end of the day, I just swapped out some of my issues for some new issues. And P.S., my hearing was still not restored. Then I wanted to push on further. I decided to go into New York City, which is I've lived right outside, and I thought I'm going to go to one of the best specialists that I can, and I'm going to figure out what's wrong with this. I got the same answer, so I will share that they did the best they could with the information that they had. Then I was at a mom's meeting, and I met another mother who used essential oils. And when I said to her, "Oh, I'd like to talk to you, but can you sit on the other side because I can't hear from the side where you're sitting?" She started to inquire as to what was going on in my health. And she shared with me that she had taken a natural approach with her health and her kids, to which I responded with a sarcastic and a lot of genuine disdain for what she was about to tell me, and say, "Oh no, you don't understand. I have a serious problem." And I really was very unkind and very dismissive of her concept of doing anything outside of conventional medicine. Well, I have to say she was a very smart individual, because she kept inquiring. And one of the things that kind of like intersected between what she was trying to talk to me about and what I was feeling was, have I ever thought about using essential oils for relaxation purposes? And to me, that made sense, right? Spas and smells and nice hotels and relaxation, that all seemed to work for me. And what she did, which was kind of sneaky, was she took some oils that you use for better hearing, for breaking down scar tissue, for better sinus performance, for better breathing, respiration, all the things that were kind of involved in what I was dealing with. And she made them into a little blend. And those blends I now call perfumes with a purpose, because when I was introduced to essential oils, to me, it was just perfume. But later, I learned in discovering essential oils that it had this really significant purpose to it. And that if you could unlock the secrets of each of these plants and really understand why they're here on the planet for us to use them, you can come up with some powerful healing modalities. But that comes much, much later. So I take her little concoction, her little perfume with a purpose. She tells me to roll it behind my ears, put it in a bathtub, soak my feet in it, rub my feet, all this good stuff. Tells my husband to, like, rub it on my shoulders, do whatever. And lo and behold, 3 months later, almost to the date, I started to see a change. I could sleep better. My hearing started to come back. My pain was nearly non existent. And I started to get curious, and I saw her, in subsequent meetings, and she said, it could be that those little essential oils are maybe helping you out. And so I went back to the doctor, because I still, I'm not going to believe her. And the doctor said to me, this is interesting, because your scar tissue is now gone. Your canal is opened up. You should be hearing pretty well. I'm like, yeah, I hear great. And he said, what have you been doing? And I was really embarrassed. I was not going to tell this man that I was using essential oils, but they didn't know what else to say. And I didn't want to lie. So I said, well, it might have to do with this. It's the only new thing I've done, but I can't imagine it's working. He goes, you know what? Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So I have to give kudos to the doctor, because honestly, the doctor was more open minded than I was. And lo and behold, I started to put the pieces together. Like I said before, I was at Columbia University. I was right there with all of the libraries and the research and the people to talk to. And I discovered that actually a lot of medications come from plants. I discovered that essential oils have been used for millennia. I learned that I was being a little bit naive about the science behind essential oils, and it was actually becoming a very growing field. Now, again, 20 years ago, a little different from now. Now, essential oils have become kind of a household name, whether it's in, scents that you get from like over the counter things like, plugins for your wall, which is totally artificial, right? But just to people putting things that say scented with essential oils, right? And we're going to talk a little bit, hopefully, about quality. Like, not everything that you see on the market is safe for you, for sure. But now at least it's easier to have a conversation with people, because people have heard of it, and I have a great story to tell. So I love my story, and I love the fact that I have not had an ear condition in 20 years, and I attribute it all to the essential oils.
Well, I can tell you, Carrie, that I have told your story probably hundreds of times, because it is an inspirational story, and you are an inspirational person. You and I have a lot in common. We both had doctor fathers, and
Right.
we both had the traditional upbringing with the traditional antibiotics, and I, like you, had lots of things with adenoids and tonsils and situations like that all the time. And my dad would probably say, well, let's just get another antibiotic, because that was the pervading way to treat these kind of things. So, but ears are another whole story. And, just the fact that you could do that with essential oils, you put them on the bone behind your ear, right?
Yeah.
The mastoid bone. Yeah, just so people know. And you did it probably 4 to 5 times a day, because I know that that seems to be the protocol for everything. So I'm just assuming that that's what you did.
Yeah, I really liked the way I felt when I used it. I learned later that more frequent use, like small amounts more frequently, is the way to go. But at the time, I think I was just happy smelling the oils and I was just happy to be starting to feel better. So I was just using them often because it made me feel good.
Well, that's a good reason as well, but there are so many reasons, as everyone will learn, why you and I both have used this for many decades, and uh, it's part of our medicine chest. Probably, what is the percentage of your would you say, of your medicine that you use essential oils for?
Yeah, so I would say 100%. I do use some herbs here and there. I do, like, we were talking about adaptogens. I use adaptogens. I try to pull together, a lot of things, but I would say the prevailing choice for me, at 80% at least, is, go with an essential oil. I've learned about different carrier oils. I'm really a big fan of castor oil right now. Coconut oil is a big one for me. I love olive oil. So I have that incorporated into some of my routine, but I try to keep it simple, because it's easier for me if I have, a very simple idea of which plants I go to or which oils I go to for different things. And the fun thing is, it was easy to teach my kids about it. So, they would, and it's totally safe. So they could, choose between, for example, lavender and wild orange for sleeping. And it was interesting because my daughter would gravitate toward one. She never liked lavender, it wasn't her thing, but my son loved lavender. And so he used it for many, many years. Now he loves things like On Guard blend, which has a lot of cinnamon to it. It kind of smells very fall like. It's a blend. And my daughter really likes Adaptive. She's in college. It's an anti-stress blend. So it's interesting. She gravitated toward that not because of the name, but because she likes the scent. Like when she puts it in her diffuser and it's just in the background, like I have a little diffuser over here, this little bubble guy, and you just kind of, he's turned off now, but you can just turn them on and you get a little burst of oil in the room, and it's really great, and it's easy to use. And so they were raised like exclusively on oils. It took a little bit of time to convert my husband. He was a little bit more hesitant. He needed to see proof. So when my hearing was improved, I jumped right into my kids. I was like, okay, the next cold and flu, I'm on this. I'm going to look stuff up. I'm going to ask around. I'm going to ask that mom friend of mine, like, what do you do when your kids get sick? Is there any essential oil for that? And she was like, yeah, there's lots of essential oils for different symptoms. So let's go through what you have. And so when they couldn't sleep, again, I would put blends, or I'd put lavender, or I'd put different citruses on their feet. And when they needed to study, for example, I used peppermint because, there's really good studies that show it improves brain function. And I know you're a brain expert, so you probably have your favorite brain oils. If I can ask a question back to you, like, what are your go-to oils for the brain?
Oh, peppermint is one of them. Citronella is one that I use a lot because I have read research about how it increases the synaptic function.
Interesting.
And also it's something to do with calcium that is very important as well. I like the Roll-On. the focus roll on.
The in tune
The
blend.
in tune,
Yeah.
the in tune. I love that. And I do it, opposite sides. I'll put it on my temples,
Okay.
with one hand and then with
And
the other
across
on
the
the other
hemispheres.
cross lateral so that we get the hemispheres. Um, those are really my go-to. I love those. And I like anything that's really kind of uplifting,
Hmm.
because I think that really does stimulate the brain. So I like the uplifting ones as opposed to the relaxing ones.
Okay.
Just my personality and my temperament. But
Yeah.
I wanted to
So
come
things like
back.
basil, rosemary, invigorating scents, spearmint.
Yes, I use basil and rosemary. Those are very good brain oils. As a matter of fact, rosemary for memory, we know that from Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to your kids because I think that it's interesting for people to know that you never gave your kids. And how old are they now?
Yeah, so I have two athletes, and I'm not an athlete, and my husband's not an athlete. So I have two college athletes, one who played football, my son, and one who's a female track and field shot put thrower. So both sports where you could get a lot of injury from repetitive movement. And I know you can talk about the anatomy and physiology of sports because you've been in that field too for a long time. But no, I never gave them an aspirin. I never gave them a Tylenol or an Advil. They didn't take any prescriptions. They never had an antibiotic. They never had an ear infection, which is kind of remarkable. And I can count on my hand the number of times I ever saw either one of my kids like vomit from an illness. Like anytime we had nausea, I would get out Digest Zen. Anytime that we would have pain, for them, when they were little, I would go with something like a spearmint, which is milder. And when they got bigger, I went with something like peppermint, which is a little bit stronger. Those also helped us to manage things like fevers, any kind of outdoor itchiness, or, if they were running around in the field and they, I don't know, got into something, same thing. We put lavender and peppermint on it, or maybe I'd give them a capsule of essential oils like Triese. doTERRA does a really cool thing where they take some of the most popular oils that we're always grabbing and they put them in capsule form so that you can get that quick delivery system, like just pop it in and take it. It's also for people who are like, in this particular moment, I don't want to smell like anything. So, yes, you could take something internally and get the same benefit without the smell. And then for people who are like, oh, I don't swallow things, I don't like to ingest things, then you can diffuse and that's in your environment, or you can apply to your skin and that will get absorbed into the skin. So, I like with kids, it's so great to have the flexibility, because when a kid's sick, maybe they don't want to drink something, or they don't want to ingest something, right? They don't take pills, but you get to rub their feet as a mom, which is great. It's like, oh my gosh, it's empowering me to make my kid feel better, and they don't feel like I'm coming at them with things that aren't desirable.
I remember, and I can't remember who told, maybe it was at your home, where I learned that they were putting peppermint on babies, or giving peppermint to the babies, and then what they did was they smelt their feet, that the peppermint actually traveled to the feet, and you could smell the peppermint on the baby. I don't know where they put it before.
Actually, you got it, but you got it in reverse. So what they
Oh,
found was if you put peppermint on your feet or any essential oil, eventually it's going to come out in your
in
breath.
your mouth,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's the other way around. But you
Well,
definitely got the story.
I
So
remembered some story about that, and I
yeah.
thought that was pretty fascinating. Um, so, what motivates you to teach other people about this?
Well, I have to
You
say
said
when
that
you
you've made it basically a career.
yes, I literally came when after my 3 month, like big transformation happened, and My hearing came back. My faith is really important to me. I have a very strong prayer life. And my career, I have to tell you, my career at Columbia was going gangbusters. Like everything was great. And I was probably almost at the peak of my career, ready for the next like level of advancement. And I remember coming home and looking at my kids, and I had two thoughts in my head was, could it be possible for me to actually work and be home with my kids? Like, was that actually a thing that I could do? And would essential oils, could that be part of it? And then the second thing that came into my head was, if I was given this information and it transformed my life so profoundly, could I really just keep it to myself? And I remember a couple months later sitting down with my husband and saying, "You're going to think I'm crazy. I know I have a wonderful job and I have wonderful benefits." And he was an entrepreneur. So, like, we didn't have any health care through him, or it wasn't like my husband had this great stable job and I could kind of go rogue, no problem. He was like, you want to do what? And I said, I want to teach people about how their body works, and I want them to know that there are plants and essential oils in the world that I believe were put there to help them feel good and to help them get over their struggles, their pains, their illnesses, their issues. And not that I'm a doctor, and not that I can, give you a magic formula for everything. But after reading so much, and like I said, this field was just starting to explode, and now it is exploded. Like now you can read research on essential oils from everywhere, every corner of the globe. Like people in China are researching it, and people in Saudi Arabia are researching it, and people in Argentina, and people in Kenya, and people in South Africa. Like Australia, like you name it, Canada, the United States, of course, like people are looking at these plants with scientific eyes and trying to figure out what it is and how it works. And they're doing amazing things. And so I I just started to kind of jump in without even realizing it. Like somebody would say to me, "Oh, my kid has lice." And I'd be like, wait a minute. I think there's an oil for that." And they're like, "There's a what?" And it was like, this is the phrase that kept coming out of my mouth. Like, I think there's an oil for that. And I get my books, and this is before the internet. So it's so much easier now, like everything's online. And I do a couple of, I have a YouTube channel that's free for anybody who wants to like just jump on and learn about essential oils. I do like a 15-second short every day on like one little tip. And it's my name. I can put it in the chat just so that you learn more. But that's what I guess that's always been my passion. It's like, if I have information and I feel better, why wouldn't I tell you? And it's sort of like that funny joke where it's like, oh, my mother-in-law makes the best, tomato sauce in the world, but I try to make it her recipe and it doesn't taste the same. Why? Because she kind of leaves something out. Like, I didn't want to be that person, like I
Yeah.
don't want to leave anything out. I don't want to be the one that is that has like the perfect recipe and everybody else has to run around and figure it out. I'm just like, I just want to give you the information as I get it. And yeah, and the blessing that's come from that has been that my husband was able to quit his job and help me in this pursuit. I was able to quit my job and be home with my kids and watch them grow up and travel with them and go to their activities at school. Like it, I don't think we would have had the life we did if I had kept my full-time job and my husband kept his full-time job. And probably our kids would end up, in daycare and other things, which is not a bad choice. It was just not the choice that we wanted. And it was great that we could make a choice.
I also want them to know that you have an amazing book
Oh, thank
on,
you.
on
Yeah,
essen-
so I didn't want to just be word of mouth. So one of the people that I passionately play with oils with, her name is Lana. We've written two books actually. The last one's called Essential Oils Healthcare for Today. It's the most up to date, even though it's a little bit old, but still really good and great for beginners. And it's at a really reasonable price. I think it's under $9 or $10. So it's a great place to start. You can get it on Amazon. Um, And yeah, it's just there for people to have that information.
What's the most challenging thing about using essential oils that for you or for others that you've encountered?
Yeah, I think the mindset shift sometimes can be the hardest thing, because I think when we talk about health, we think in terms of medicine, which means we think in terms of dosing, right? And so like nobody would walk into the grocery store and say, "Okay, I'm only going to buy, one steak or two apples or one potato or, um whatever it is, like one piece of cheese, because that's the dose that's safe for my health." And maybe, I don't know, in a world full of obesity and metabolic instability, maybe we should be talking about food that way, but we don't. And I want you to think of essential oils more like the way we think about food, instead of the way we think about medicine. And so it's hard for people when they first get started with essential oils, because they're very focused on, well, how many drops and how often and what's too much. And so, what I will share with you is, we have a few basic rules. Don't put them in your eyes, don't put them in your ears. If you get them on your skin and they bother you in any way, get out some fractionated coconut oil and just rub it on, or castor oil. It'll dilute it right away. You won't have any issue whatsoever. You got some in your eye, you could just take a tissue with some, again, olive oil, castor oil, coconut oil, and just wipe it out of your eye. It's not going to do permanent damage. You don't have to call poison control. It's not crazy. Um, and then use them every few hours. But other than that, you can be very, very just kind of unstructured with your use of essential oils. And so I think sometimes when I talk to people, they get very hesitant about trying something because they don't want to do it wrong or overdo it. So that's been my biggest challenge, is just letting people relax into the modality and, play around with it. That's why it's there.
Good answer. I like that, and I've encountered that myself with people that I've been working with as well. Just we only have a couple minutes
Yeah.
left, and I have so many things I want to ask you, but the one thing I do think is important for you to address is the quality of essential oils, because that really is very important. I mean, that's like the most important thing.
Right. So remember when I said 20 years ago, like there weren't that many people using essential oils? In a way, that was good because it was easier to get high quality products. As the popularity of essential oils grew, and as pharmaceuticals jumped in and the food industry jumped in, and science and chemistry jump in, you can make a fake essential oil really easily. And so the problem with that is it doesn't work in your body the same way, and it can actually make you very, very sick. And so when I tell people I'd like to share information with you, I'm only sharing information based on your using doTERRA essential oils, because I was with another company. I constantly look at other companies because I want the best. That's my preference. I'm always looking for the best. And so when I found doTERRA and I met the owners and I went to their labs, I really dug deep on this one because it was super important to me. I I looked at all the reports. I looked at the case studies. I looked at the third party testing. And the next thing that doTERRA has recently done, which is really exciting for me, is now they're doing human clinical trials. So we've had this huge progression of concretizing the purity, the potency, and the efficacy of these essential oils based on different testing modalities. And it's really interesting because you can call another company and you can say to them, so how much money do you invest in human clinical trials? And I haven't met one that says they even do them. So I want to know, right, that if I were to take a drug that's been tested on human beings, right, and that it works, there have been people willing to try this. And also, you should know that that doTERRA does human clinical trials on their essential oils, and the data is very specific to the human body and how it works and how it performs. Having said that, we also have an entire division dedicated to pets and using pure, unadulterated essential oils with your pets and helping them get over some of the same issues that you and I experience. So the testing is really, really deep and significant. And then I can trust that. I have to tell you, when I switched companies, one of the things that was most important to me was that my very close friend's son, who was suffering from two different types of cancers, was going to be able to use these essential oils and that it would not harm him in any way. Because I said, I can't, in all good conscience, recommend these oils to my very, very close friend who has a very, very sick son and wonder, God forbid, if one day something happened to him that it had to do with the essential oils. And so I really wanted to see everything that I possibly could before I started using them. So I'm pretty confident in my choice now.
Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end on because the time is up, and I'm sorry that it went so quickly, but certainly you are a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so happy that you did this presentation tonight because I think that the people who will watch this or who have watched this and will watch it when it comes out tomorrow or whenever will be very well educated, and I'm sure they have lots of questions. So thank you so much, Carrie, for uh, gracing us with your beautiful presence, and I'm so happy that I get to see you again and talk to you again.
Oh, thank you, Lana. This has been wonderful, and I know that you and everyone in Florida are bracing for a terrible storm. So our prayers and thoughts are with you at this time.
Thank you.
Hopefully they'll blow in a different direction. But if you have questions, you can go ahead and look in the comment section. I left my email. I'm happy to answer those.
Yes, so the it's in the chat, and we're going to chat too. So
Okay.